I'm going to throw things over to Carol Daw to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to thank Greta for all her help on this, and for Cheryl and Tom and Kelly and Jeff for all their hard work. I'm going to say this a couple times. This is still a work in progress. So as you see things, know that we're still in the end stages of we're in the end part of the validation stage for this. But we will be giving you domain names to look at your own instance of the catalog within probably a week or so, maybe even sooner. We're still working on some logs. If you are someone who likes to learn things twice, you can sign up for the Wednesday afternoon session of this and do a repeat. And I also urge those of you that are interested in signing up for the Reader's Advisory part of this on Thursday afternoon. This is a patron catalog, but with staff applications. And the Reader's Advisory session of this is going to talk a lot about how you can build lists and do a lot of interesting things to help benefit your patrons. Let us know if you have questions or concerns. Again, we will be sharing a domain name with you shortly. There will also be these recorded sessions and some other options for training as well. Thank you so much. Back to you, Brianna.
All right, thanks, Carol. So to start off, my name is Britta O'Leary. I am the Senior Implementations and Training Specialist at BiblioCommons. We are based in Toronto, Canada. And we are the folks that made your new catalog. So I'll start by talking a bit about BiblioCommons and our philosophy when creating software. Our motto is love your online library, and we believe that libraries are places that are welcoming, inspiring, and connecting. The physical library is somewhere where everyone is welcome, regardless of age, background, literacy level, and where you're inspired by what you're able to discover and explore, and where you can connect with new people and ideas. And libraries are already great at creating the space in branches with displays, programming, readers advisory, community engagement, and sharing ideas. And our goal as a company is to give you a platform to create this space online. Right now, patrons are going places like Goodreads and Amazon to find what they want to read or watch, and then using the library as a place to obtain those materials. And we want to flip this on its head and make your online library become that place where patrons go to discover and track what they're reading, watching, and listening to. So how do we do this? We design for discovery. We have better borrowing, a search that works how patrons naturally think, with welcoming title records and the ability to bring staff personality online and connect through content. And we also have a responsive design. And I'll show some previews right now. So this is the recent activity page that highlights recently reviewed and rated items, recent tags. Our borrowing pages that emphasize the most important information and actions. You can also borrow ebooks directly from the catalog. And Smart Search enables you to search terms intuitively, like new teen books, and actually get results for new teen books. Keyword search suggestions and group search provide suggestions right in the search box, and it groups together all formats of a title, making it easier for you to find what you're looking for. And we have welcoming title records that make it easier to learn more, find related content like lists and reference comments, and manage your borrowing as well. We also have the ability to bring staff personality online. So this is a screenshot from Arapahoe Libraries. You can see that the comments from my library staff are specifically highlighting Arapahoe Library staff. And we'll talk more on Thursday, and Carol will be in touch with more information about how staff accounts are going to be managed at LLC, both as a consortium with a lot of member libraries and in general in terms of strategy. You can also share recommendations with lists and comments. And track your reading with shelves, where you can share what you're interested in, what you have read, what you're currently reading, and easily add comments like tags, comments, and ratings. We also have a responsive design, and what that means is you don't need an app. Your BiblioCommons instance will adapt to look good on different screen sizes, whether mobile, tablet, or desktop. And we also work with accessibility consultants to ensure our products are up to web content accessibility guidelines. So a few things to note before we really dive in. One is that, as Carol noted, we're replacing your current patron-facing catalog. You'll still be using your current ILS. And BiblioCore has a lot of interactive features beyond a standard discovery layer, but sharing material is always optional. If a patron does nothing different with our catalog than they did with the previous one, nothing will be visible. So now let's really dive in, and we'll start by talking about registration. So when a user registers, they'll need to, or like use the catalog for the first time for their borrowing functionality, they'll need to register an account at the domain. And this is normally a template slide where I would replace what this is with the instance I'm training on. But because there's so many different catalogs across LLC, each member library will have their own instance. So where it says library name, it will be replaced with a subdomain. And as Carol mentioned, she'll be communicating those shortly. So when you log in for the first time, the catalog will prompt you to create an account, and you can log in with your barcode or username. Usernames will show in social content, but if a user doesn't post anything, nothing will be public. It just makes it easier to honestly log in. It's easier to remember something that you created yourself as opposed to a random string of numbers. So first, you'll log in with your username or your barcode and PIN that you've used historically. You'll be asked to verify your email address. Depending on what's stored in your ILS, your date of birth may or may not be pulled in. And the reason that we ask for date of birth is so that we can identify who is under the age of 13, because users under 13 have restrictions due to privacy laws around what they can post online. And that's true across the entire internet. If you've ever seen something ask for your birth date, it's because they need to know if you're able to enter free text. I'll talk more about that in a sec. You'll then create a username. This is a free-form field, but we have at this point about 10 million users across all the libraries we work with. So you want to make sure that you're choosing something unique. I alluded to there being different functionality for users under 13, and this is because we need to adhere to the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Users under 13 are prohibited from entering in free text online, and to comply with COPPA, they have adapted functionality. So we ask for birth month and year as an indicator of age. We don't ask for date as personally identifiable information. And once a user turns 13, they'll have full functionality on BiblioCore. And because they can't enter free text, they can't choose a custom username. So the way that we approach this is we let them choose from a dropdown a color and an animal. And then we automatically attach a numbered suffix. So on the month after they turn 13, if they're born in April, on May 1st, they will have full functionality on the site. So we're going to dive in with how, with search is the next topic. So we'll start by taking a look at search and how it can be used both for patrons looking for a specific title and for patrons looking for their next great read. And before we look at how to use search, I want to first go over some of the factors that influence how we design it. So when we look at our analytics, we find that people regularly search formats like books, movies, and DVDs. And on a standard catalog, this doesn't do much. It shows titles called movies. We also find that patrons use keyword search more than dropdowns or advanced search, and they use search to find exact matches and browse. So they might be looking for just new teen fantasy. They might be looking for, a specific title. And search is also the first place that patrons go to on a library website. So if that's what they're doing, it needs to be powerful. It needs to get them what they're looking for. It's 2021, and we already know how to use search. Patrons learn searching from Google, from Facebook, from Amazon, and you do those things too. You're used to typing in terms intuitively and getting results, and we feel that patrons shouldn't have to learn a separate search just to use their public library. So this is how you search movies on Amazon and Google, and this is how you should be able to search movies on your library site as well. So we're going to start with a tour of the search interface and then go through some of the features. So one thing I want to note that is unique to this training for LLC is that because there's so many different domains, I've had to choose kind of two to use just to show a variety. And these were suggested by Carol as kind of showing a variety of examples. So LLC has a mix of scoped and unscoped catalogs. An unscoped catalog encompasses all of a consortium's holdings, while a scoped catalog is limited to a particular member library's holdings. So in the examples I'm using today, Muskegon and Hastings, which is, don't worry, this will be up eventually, the logo. Muskegon represents a scoped catalog in that all the searches only bring up holdings at Muskegon, and Hastings represents an unscoped catalog. So the way I'm going to approach going through, kind of the script that I have for training is I'm going to go back and forth and kind of choose some things to demo on Muskegon and some things to demo on Hastings. But if you're curious, if anything that I've demoed, how it looks on another catalog. So if I demo a term on Muskegon and you want to know how it looks on Hastings or vice versa, please add in chat and I'm happy to do so. I have my script, but there is room to pivot and I love questions. So any questions you have, we've built in a buffer for questions. Please feel free to chat them in, ideally through Q&A because it's easier to track. And I'll answer them when it comes to a natural break. So we're going to start with our tour of search on Hastings. So the drop-down menu has similar search types to a standard catalog. And one thing I'll note is that staff are often used to keyword not being effective. So instead of struggling with relevant results, you'll go right to something that you know works, like search types or advanced search. And BiblioCore keyword is very powerful, and you'll be able to use it for a lot of the searches you've relied on other tools for in the past. It's often going to be a combo of keyword with filters. So if you don't get your exact result, there's a few ways that you can narrow it down. But when you're getting comfortable with search, start with keyword, and if it doesn't get what you're looking for, then you've identified use cases to use other tools. So when I type in a term in keyword, I'm automatically getting suggestions for titles and authors who begin with or stem from what I've entered. So in this case, I've typed in C, we're getting Harlan Coben, Janine Cummings, Chris Whitaker, Cast. But once I start adding more terms, it changes to whatever is stemming from those characters. So we've got Charlotte's Web, Charlie McKeesey, I guess, Charles Martin. And this goes off your relevancy ranking. So whatever is circulating highest is going to be an indicator of what is most popular and likely what people are going to be looking for. So we create the terms to do, or the tools to do more nitty-gritty searches, but in terms of sheer quantity, the majority of the searches that patrons are doing are going to be for similar titles. Rather than kind of esoteric deep searches. It's very likely that most of their searches are going to be just title and author or format. So this just enables people to find what they're looking for right away. And it can also help catch some common misspellings. So here I've spelled, oh, this was working. Okay, there we go. Maybe I just wasn't being patient enough. So I've misspelled Neil as in Neil Gaiman, but it's still giving me results for the correct spelling of Neil Gaiman. Another example, I've misspelled Dashiell. We're still getting results for Dashiell Hammond. And if keyword search suggestions, I'll just stick on here for a little moment, doesn't catch those misspellings, or you just type enter too quick, we've got did you mean? So I've typed Bernard Cornwell, that's not his name, and it's suggesting do you mean Bernard Cornwell? View 171 results. And now we're getting results for Bernard Cornwell. I'm going to jump back to Hastings. So keyword covers most of what you need for title and author searches. So I've typed in becoming. And you'll note that we're seeing items exactly called becoming before we get to things that have becoming somewhere in the title. That's going to be on a later page. And we're also getting the Michelle Obama book at the top because even though there's other titles called Becoming, this is the most popular title called Becoming. So it's likely what people are going to be looking for when they search that term. And this goes off the same relevancy rankings that help dictate what shows in keyword search suggestions. It's just that we prioritize those exact matches first. You can also search authors by first name, last name. So here I've searched John Green, and instead of getting things called John Green, we're getting results of his works. So here we're seeing all of the different ways to read the faults in our stars. You'll notice that they're grouped together, and Hastings is unscoped, so we're getting kind of results across the whole LLC system. And this just enables people to, the group search enables people to compare availability for formats. So we can see available at the top, followed by unavailable. And it's useful if someone is format agnostic, they don't have a strong preference, or they're just, open to multiple formats. They might prefer ebook, but they'll take print book in a pinch. Or if their preferred format of a popular title is less popular, such as large print. So you don't have to go to like a later page to find if there is large print. You can just recognize that right away. And there's also while you wait, which kind of shows up when it shows up. And this is powered by Novelist. So if there's a title that's unavailable, it's going to cross-reference it, or sorry, in this case, it's powered by Library Thing. It's going to cross-reference it against available recommendations in your title. So you can place a hold on this title, and then also get any of these titles that are already available. And looking at the format chooser. So here you can click on the title to view, usually for book formats, it'll be for the print book. Or clicking on individual formats as well will go to the bib page for that specific format. And I'm going to cover the bib page much more in depth later on. But at this point, I'll just do a quick overview of the different, of the format chooser. So here we can switch between the different formats. With available book, we're seeing the ability to place hold. You can also see different formats. And the availability by location. So this availability pulls in near time. It caches every hour just to kind of speed up loading. And so it's very likely to be accurate, but if it's a popular title and you want to confirm that it is indeed available, you can click availability by location. And that's going to show much more details around where it is actually available. You can also switch between formats. So here I'm on book, you know, it's how it says place hold and it shows physical availability. But when I click ebook, I'm now seeing instructions on how to access it as an online resource, and I can view more items for, or more editions for ebooks as well. And in this case, I can check it out directly from Overdrive, and I'll demo that more extensively later. Good question came in is, will availability by location still show up in scoped library catalogs? That's a great question. And so what I'm going to do is give that a whirl. And just kind of a quick tip is if you replace a subdomain, you can get the same title, or you should be able to. I guess I didn't show that. I'm just going to grab that same title. Here, we're definitely seeing like slightly more limited because this one is scoped. So availability by location in this case, we're just seeing the Muskegon, or I don't know if you guys say Maddle, locations here because this is scoped to just the Muskegon locations. Someone requested, can you check out directly from the catalog with Hoopla materials or just Overdrive/Libby? I believe it's just Overdrive at this point, and that's because Overdrive has supplied us with an API. But Hoopla materials, I do believe will pull in. Carol, I'm not sure if you have any more insight into that, because Carol's been working more closely with my colleague Isaac on setting up the catalog.
We'll talk about that a little later. How about that?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So now that we've gotten to know the search interface, let's see what it can do. And I'm going to stick on Muskegon for this. So Core assumes that what someone searches is exactly what they're looking for. So if I type it, we're getting results for the Stephen King book and film adaptations, rather than items that just contain it somewhere in the title. If you feel like crying, you can search up. Or another good example is Me, where it's prioritizing exact matches before we get to Me for You. Oh, this is interesting how it's ranked. It's unusual. I'll look into that. And the exact matches extend to articles. So if I search the help, we're going to get the Catherine Stockett book and the film adaptation. But if I remove the, let's give it a sec. All right, this normally doesn't do this. I'm just going to give a check over here. All right, so normally it's that it doesn't it prioritizes items without articles, and it did do that in the dry run that I tried out last week. So I'll look into why it's not behaving kind of as expected. And questions that came in. So from Leanne, can Scoping Library see the entire catalog after they search to see what's available throughout the cooperative? Carol, do you have any insight into that for scoped libraries? There is the option to search the Lakeland catalog, so I'm not sure if that's what covers it.
Yes, I'm sorry, my mute button wasn't working. Yes, I think if you can show them a search and then go to the Lakeland catalog, that prompt up on the left, that will answer some questions.
Awesome. So this leads to the entire LLC catalog.
And I think it's important to remember the reason why many of you wanted to scope is so that your digital materials will be easily accessible in the catalog, and it'll be a less step process. And this was discussed thoroughly by directors and decision makers. So that's the reason that you have some scoped libraries and some unscoped libraries, but most of the libraries, I think 35 of you or 34 of you are scoped and 5 are unscoped.
And Chelsea asked related, how do we know who is scoped and who is not? Carol, is that going to be delivered with the list of domains?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good point. Good.
And Shelley also asked, we got a lot of scoping questions, which is not unexpected. If a library settings are set to scope, as a patron, is there a way to override that setting to see if the item is available outside their library? So there is kind of this option to access the catalog. Another thing that I haven't quite tested, I'm just going to do a keyboard smash to hopefully get 0 results, is that if there's nothing found, so in this case, it's, maybe someone will title something like this later. It's saying nothing found, and the next option is to search the Lakeland catalog. In this case, it's probably not going to be an effective search anywhere, but it then directs you to Melcat, which is not something I'm super familiar with. But if someone is getting 0 results, they're going to see didn't find what you're looking for. And I think this also shows at the bottom as well. Yeah, so if we scroll down, it's didn't find what you're looking for, discover more services and resources.
Greta, can I just interject?
Yeah, always.
This is kind of a training issue because this is very different than what we currently have with Encore through Innovative. So I know this probably seems a bit foreign to some people, but it's more, I think, of a training issue with libraries that they're going to be able to see their library first, and then they'll go to the broader search. So be patient with it, and we'll help you figure out how to train your libraries for that. I'm speaking to the Lakeland staff here.
Yeah, and I think also there's almost like a retraining process. I wasn't actually familiar with whether the previous catalog was scoped. This is meant to be intuitive for patrons, but especially people who, I use my public library search maybe once a week. And that's as like a person who reads about 2 books a week. So someone who is a patron is going to be using searches on the rest of the internet way more frequently than they do library staff. So they're going to kind of come in and assume it's going to work the same way as everything else. But for staff, there's also a process of retraining, of recognizing things that you've done that you might not have recognized as workarounds or just as workflows, and figuring out how do you achieve the same goal. And Cheryl, I can promote you to panelist. I'll just do that 1 sec. All right, Cheryl, I'm just going to double check, but you should have the floor.
All right. I just wanted, this is Cheryl, and I just wanted to point out to everyone that as you're looking and that didn't find what you're looking for, and some of those links on the bottom, those are still under construction this week, everyone. So this is still very much a work in progress. So don't panic when you don't find your resources there and stuff like that. That's still under construction. That's all.
Awesome. Yeah. And as Carol mentioned, this is a work in progress, and it's kind of a mix of things that the project team is aware of and is actively working on. But also there's going to be a few things that you might come across that aren't familiar. And that's just because when you're looking at, when you're using something casually, you're going to notice different things than when you're looking for them. The same way where when you're reading a book, you notice a typo that's obviously been proofread, but it's just going to, you just notice things differently when you're not looking for them. So if you know something that is strange, check with the project team, and there'll probably be list of things that are kind of known issues. But if there's something you notice that isn't on that, definitely let Carol or Cheryl know, and they might be in touch with a method for that. Okay, so keep the questions coming, and just if you can try and put them in Q&A, it's much easier for me to track. It's because it's got little bubble notifications on my end at least. So next we're going to look at Smart Search. The exception to those exact matches is format searches. And if a patron searches for a format like DVDs, search assumes that they're looking to see what DVDs are in the catalog rather than any other medium that contains DVD in the title. So if I type in movies, it's automatically applying all of the formats that a movie could be on. So we've got DVD, downloadable video, Blu-ray disc, and video cassette. And this works both for super format, something like movies, or specific format like DVDs. So here we're only getting DVDs. And one note is that this goes off format rather than medium. So since movies and television are cataloged on the same format, typing in television is going to provide the same results as movies. You can also do book, and this is going to bring up all of the different book formats. So we're getting book, ebook, large print, graphic novel, board book, book club kit. This is an interesting title by George Bush. I'm trying to understand it. And you can also search book format specifically. So large print, or graphic novel. And one thing to note is that when we looked at Smart Search, Group Search, audiobooks were included as the format for a book. But for the purposes of Smart Search, a book is words that you're reading with your eyes. So audiobooks aren't going to be included with a search for books, but you can search those specifically. So this works with any of the formats along the left-hand side, which is how it's mapped to your catalog. So you can see downloadable video. You can search any of these terms, and there's a few variations as well, and those are listed in our partner portal. But you can also combine them with qualifying facets to drill down even further. So those will always need to be combined with a format term. I'm just going to check the question. So quick comment for Chelsea, this is from Tom, which is for each member's catalog landing page, if there's a link next to explore for the Lakeland catalog, it is a scoped member. If the Lakeland link is not there, it is a non-scope site as the option is not needed as a full catalog search. Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you, Tom. It wasn't something I'd noticed yet. So jumping back to Smart Search, you can add qualifying facets to drill down even further. So the first is audience, which is age. So I can type in teen books. And we're getting all of the book formats as well as teen. I can do kids movies. So all of the movie formats as well as children. And this is meant to, this uses natural language, so it's meant to be intuitive. So people are more likely to say kids movies than juvenile film. But you can also shake up the language a little bit and do movies for children. And the next is language. So I can type in Spanish DVDs, and we're getting DVD and Spanish. And then French books. And this goes off language that the work is in rather than country of origin. So these are not necessarily going to be books from France. And the last one is new. So you can type in new, and it's going to pull in only material from the past 180 days. And you can also combine these. And so long as there are titles that match this search, so in this case, Spanish kids books, we're getting book, graphic novel, board book, children, and Spanish, it's going to go as a keyword. So the way that Smart Search works is, first of all, every search you do runs through almost like a Smart Search, I want to say filter, but it checks if it's Smart Search, and that's based off whether it contains a format term. And then it identifies if something matches that format term, and then if these qualifying facets, so audience, language, and new, have matches in the catalog. So if you leave out a format term, so in this case, I'm just typing Spanish, it runs as a keyword search, and you can see here. Or if you type in something that might not have results, even though this is recognizable as a Smart Search term, it's going to run as a keyword search because there's nothing that matches this. And if you introduce a term that isn't a Smart Search term, even if the other terms are, it's going to run as a keyword search. So I can type new fantasy books. And because fantasy as genre is not a Smart Search term, it's running as a keyword search. So there's one last Smart Search term that's used by itself, and it tends to be one that horrifies librarians. And that is typing in all and bringing up everything that is in your catalog. So here we're getting all of the book formats, and it's useful for getting counts or just seeing, starting very broad and narrowing down. So there's two other uses for keyword. And one is the call number. I'm just going to check actually what the call number is in your catalog for what I'm going to search. So here I've searched 523.01 Tyson, and we're getting astrophysics for people in a hurry because that matches this keyword. And I'm just going to answer these questions in one sec. And another thing you can do with keyword is the 13-digit ISBN. And we're going to get the item that matches that ISBN. So question from Kari is, how do you know what is a Smart Search term? So there's essentially, I'm just going to start with books so we can see. all of the items along this side are not going to are going to be usable as smart search terms. You can search board book, you can search audiobook CD. For audience terms, it's pretty simple. It's kids, teens, adults. Sorry, just going to see that's under audience, these terms. And then for language, and I'm going to go over filters much more in depth in a bit, anything that is in your catalog. So I could search, Flemish has like a semicolon, so I don't want to try that out. But I could search Portuguese books. Did I misspell Portuguese? Yes, I did. So we're getting book and Portuguese. And then the word new. But for the variations, there's an article in our partner portal, which I'll talk about more towards at the very end of the presentation. That lists all of the smart search variations. So you don't need to go deep into it. The idea is that it is meant to be more intuitive for people who are used to searching this way online. But if you want to just check what people need to do, you can reference this article. Question from Erica is, what if you just search by genre without specifying a format? Would that be keyword as well? Yes, it would. Anything that doesn't match those format terms or doesn't include a format term or match the parameters is going to run as a keyword search. But if you're looking for genre, that would work well in subject search, which I'll demo a bit later. So I'm going to jump back over to Muskegon, and we'll look at narrowing down a search term through filters and facets. And these are these wonderful little terms along the left-hand side. So I'm going to start with just a really broad search for books so that we can narrow it down. And we use a combo of filters and facets. So a facet is identifiable with a checkbox, and this applies attributes to a search. You can select non-overlapping facets. So if you select adults, I'll just scroll down as an example. You can also select teens. Filters are identifiable with blue links. And right now we have a few things that are undetermined, and that's something that I know Isaac is going to be looking into. But fiction, if you select this, it's going to exclude the ability to have nonfiction. So it just narrows it down. And these are also true filters. So every time you select or deselect something, if I want to exclude board book, it's going to refresh the search. So you're always getting accurate results. And that way you don't click a bunch of filters and end up with 0 results, and you can combine and edit your search live. So under available now, in this case as a scope catalog, this goes by location availability. So here we're seeing all of the MADL locations. Do you guys say MADL? If someone wants to let me know in chat, or if I'm making this up. I know libraries can be very specific about acronyms. Yes, awesome. The last consortia I trained was called, spelled IFLS, and it wasn't until I showed up in Wisconsin that I realized it was pronounced IFLS. So that's one of the slight disadvantages to only being able to do webinar training in this COVID travelless world is making sure that I pronounce things correctly. But I did send Carol an email last night confirming the pronunciation for Muskegon, so hopefully I'm getting that right as well. So back to filters and facets. So we've got all of the MADL locations. And I'm going to select Dalton. And you can see that's narrowing down a bit more. We've got all of our format terms. And then there's also new, and this allows you to filter by items within the past 180 days, drilling down a bit more, or over 180 days. So let's drill down a bit more. And now we're getting 79,000 results. So availability is how, whether a title is available. That's can I have it? Titles I can is how you access something. So borrow and take home, it is a physical item you're planning to leave the library with. Whereas access online, it's digital material. And you may also see only used in the library, which means it's reference material. I'll see if Hastings has that. Nope, not there. So it might show up, it's just not showing up with this particular search. So see if I can see it through. There we go. So it's showing generally because reference material, I guess, must have not been coming in with the past 180 days. So next is content. And undetermined, that is being sorted out just in terms of mapping, but there's fiction and nonfiction. So I'm going to filter down to fiction. And now we're getting, because I removed the new filter, we're getting 146,000 results. And then audience, I'm going to filter to adults. So form, genre, topic, and regions pull from subject headings, but they're separated into components to be more user-friendly and to allow you to mix and match so that you don't need to select a complete subject heading, you can select components of subject headings. So I'm going to select historical fiction. I will now be narrowing down quite a bit to about 4,500 results. And one of the things I love about kind of demoing this narrowing down is you end up with things that you didn't realize were genres like sea stories. And I found a really great tag in a moment that I'll show. Topic. So I'm going to do social life and customs. And you can see that now we're narrowing down quite a bit to specific topics. So we've got books that are historical fiction for adults available at the Dalton branch that deal with social life and customs. And then region is pretty straightforward as well. Author, again, pretty straightforward. Languages, also pretty straightforward, and published date, again, pretty straightforward. So you'll notice that there are ratings as we go through. Everything from published date upwards pulls from your cataloging information, but you also, so you're never going to see anything in your catalog that, or in these results that isn't in your catalog. But we also have social content that can allow you to, find more meaningful ways, or not more as in like more than, but additional meaningful ways to filter your search. I'm just going to go to the question from Lindsay, which is, how are the genres determined? Is that determined by a database? So all of this information pulls from the MARC records that are attached to individual bibs. So I'm just going to go over to the Bridgertons and kind of show, like, I'll talk about the bib page in a bit, but just show how if we look at the full details, you can see that it has these genres I've applied. So historical fiction, that's added in the MARC record for this title. Social life and customs, that's part of the subject heading. So when I facet to these, then it's this title is being pulled in because it's cataloged with these attributes. And this is something that is honestly quite particular by libraries. So you might see different subject headings pulling across different items or different catalogs. I don't quite have full insight into LLC's cataloging practices, but that's something you'll probably discover as you go through. So rating, these are user added. Not all titles have ratings. Romance fans tend to be pretty opinionated, so we're not getting A lot of the titles do, but with Jews, queers, Germans, we don't have one yet. So if you facet to ratings, it's generally going to be a smaller pool of title just because we don't have everything with ratings. Adult titles tend to be mostly rated 3 to 4 stars. Kids titles tend to be often rated 4 stars and above because kids love a lot of different things, or maybe a bit less critical. But if I filter to 3 to 4 stars, then I'm getting kind of middle rated titles. So tags are user added. And these, I'm just going to jump back over to my other notes. This is a way to add supplemental information that might not necessarily be covered by subject headings or just other information in the catalog. And if someone adds this in any BiblioCommons catalog, it's going to show here as well so that you're able to leverage that social content. So tags are along 3 prompts: genre, tone, and theme. I'll show later how to add tags. But you can facet through this. And I found when I was doing this, the desire for approval tag, which I thought was pretty funny. And so here we're nailing down to something pretty niche. But it's a useful way to kind of start broad and browse and kind of see what is around. See, now I'm like now I'm slightly interested in this. So I'm going to deselect a few facets just to show some other, or kind of the last facet, which is reading level. So this goes off Lexile level. Lexile level measures the complexity of a work. So it's kind of almost like if you've used like Hemingway online. It aligns it with a certain reading level. It's not based on assessments like grade level or AR or DRA. It's just based on complexity. And so it doesn't factor in audience appropriateness. So if you're looking for something at a certain age, you'll also want to make sure you facet by children. So I'll select the one that has kind of the most populous titles. And so because we kept historical fiction and the Dalton branch active, we're seeing things that are along that specific reading level. Any questions on filters and facets specifically? Let's take a 1-minute pause. Okay, so keep the questions coming. You guys have had really great ones so far. I'll keep pausing because I know that it does sometimes take a bit longer to type. Oh, there we go. We've got one. So Lindsay asked, did you say the tags are generated through BiblioCommons? Yes, tags are added by any user of BiblioCore. So you can add tags. I'll talk more about best practices for that in the Thursday Readers Advisory training. You can also leverage the tags that have already been added by other people. So one thing you can also do is if there is a search that you're going to be using regularly, you can save it to have it handy for later reference. And a common question that happens that I'll just kind of address as a side note while I'm here is what can you do with the catalog without being logged in? I have not been logged in this whole time. You can see that this shows up here. So you can use all of the search and discovery functionality without being logged in. But as soon as you try to do something that requires account functionality, like adding social content or using account functionality, it's going to prompt you to log in, or borrowing functionality. So it's prompted to log in, and now I'm being prompted to name my search, and it defaults to whatever search term it is. So I'll just save here. And then I can access my saved searches. You're going to see this little bar underneath the search term. And you can see other saved searches. So you can access it, search through the name, or you can edit the search directly, or view all. And here we're seeing the parameters in a bit more kind of like technical language than we saw on Fast. And Cheryl commented that Lexa levels are now assigned to bib records by our authority control vendor and added to MARC records when we send out monthly updates. Yes, that's awesome to know. The Lexa levels that appear in BiblioCore actually come not from your cataloging information. So it's awesome that you'll already have it in there, but it's going to be included because we partner with a company called Metametrics that references the Lexa level against the ISBN. So that's where this filter comes from. But there also might be the Lexa level in the bib page, and we can take a look at that when we check that out later. So another great search with filters and facets, or a great kind of use with filters and facets, is being able to set them to be active. And this is really useful if you're doing repeated searches for the same patron. It's likely that some of the same attributes will apply. So if someone is looking for a large print available at a particular branch, you can ask them if this is something that they want to all the other searches they're doing, and keep those filters pinned. So I'm going to just do a new search. So we'll use that as an option. So I'll do James Patterson. I'm going to have it available at Holton. And then I'm going to go down and select large print. And so here we're seeing results for James Patterson books available at Holton in large print. And if I set them to be active, the next filter that I do, or the search I do, oh, so in this case, we're not getting full results. I'm just trying to think if I can, so we're getting books by Douglas J. Preston with these same attributes applied. So keyword will cover most of what you need for title and author searches, but the search type dropdowns are useful if what you're looking for goes against the relevancy rankings. So for example, biography versus autobiography. So if I search Stephen King under title, actually, sorry, I don't think this one is quite working. We're seeing items that have Stephen King in the title. And in this case, because it's been billed as Stephen King's It, is showing in the alternate title. So if I look for, let's just pull this up, variant title Stephen King's It. And another example, actually I was going to jump over to Hastings for this one. So if I search Hamilton in keyword, we're primarily getting results for the musical because it's popular, it's circulating highly. But if we're only looking for books by someone named Hamilton, I can switch to author. And it's only going to search the author/contributor field. And you generally can just use keyword for musicians, but author can also be useful for actors. So here I'm getting all items that have Al Pacino listed as a contributor. Subject is useful for searching any term in a subject heading. So one thing I'll just kind of circle back on and note is if you search music, it's going as a smart search, but if I want to view it as a keyword search and see items called music, I can just do keyword search for music. And if I search music as a subject, we're seeing items that have music as a subject. There's also series search that searches specifically the series data. So we're getting items in the Outlander series rather than just the first title and the TV series called Outlander. And you can also search tag. So in this case, you can search something like diverse voices. Or cozy mystery. And the last part of search we'll do is advanced search. And just because this is a slightly longer webinar, once I finish advanced search, I'll just pause for about 2 minutes, shake it out, bathroom break, whatever you need while I get some stuff up for the next session. So I'll let you know when we kind of hit the trigger if you need to do that. That'll be kind of like a slight lull while I get some stuff set up. So advanced search, this has some useful, actually I was going to do this on Muskegon. Sorry, I don't usually do this jumping around a little. It has some useful features that can help with more complex queries. But I want to encourage you to use the main search as a default. And rather than searching collections or fields directly, you can often achieve the same goal by applying filters and facets. And it's easier for patrons to edit directly. So advanced search has two components. There is a query editor that allows for free-form queries and a query form that allows you to build queries. And I'll look at the form first. So there's more search type items, options such as award, genre, publisher, and call number. So publisher, I can search Penguin. And we're getting items published by Penguin. And you can also modify your search and combine it. So if I'm looking for Shakespeare books, but only those published by Penguin, so in this case, it's good for public domain. I can do publisher Penguin and author or contributor Shakespeare, and we're getting results for Shakespeare books published by Penguin. Although it's interesting, I was kind of listed in some of these. You can limit your search, although I do recommend using collections and filters and facets. Sorry, using filters and facets rather than collections is just much easier to combine rather than drilling down to something very, very specific that you would then have to switch to another thing for. But the freeform field, so when you edit it, it's going to disable this form because this can't write back to this. Is useful for wildcard searches. So I can do a straw and asterisk. And we're getting things that stem from this term like astronomy, astronauts, astronomers. Or Boolean searches. So I can search Potter, not Harry. And we're getting results for Potter that don't include Harry Potter. And for advanced search queries, there's also a tips page that helps you write your own queries and shows different fields you can search. You can also write your own queries free form. Oh, and that's the wrong place to put it. So in this case, I can do subject Sherlock Holmes, but not contributor Conan Doyle, and that's specifically excluding Conan Doyle from the contributor field. But as you can see, it's still coming from other items, reference to Conan Doyle in other places. So the last part of search is sorting options. So I'm going to start with a search for saga. And we're primarily seeing the comic book at the top because it's most popular, it's circulating highly, and other items exactly called saga. And that goes off relevancy, but you can also search by date acquired, title, as well as author, publication date, and rating. Okay, so I'm going to pause for 2 minutes while I get some stuff up for the next section. I'll come back. I think we're all in Eastern time at 11:11. So use the bathroom, shake it out, whatever you need to do, and we'll come back in a sec. And I'm still here, so if you want to use this time to answer questions, feel free to do so. Okay, so we've hit 11:11, and we're going to do a quick overview of holds, borrowing, and ebooks, and we'll stay on Muskegon for this. So one note is that preferred locations, you can set those in settings, and it's going to show whichever you have set. So if you want something to be kind of, you're always going to be picking up at the same place, you can set this. I don't think this one has that. And you can also check out ebooks from Overdrive directly from the catalog. So I'm going to place a hold on this. I have single click hold set up, so it's automatically processing at my preferred location, so that I can kind of show holds page in a sec. But with ebooks, I'm going to just search ebooks. You can place a hold through request this download. Or available ebooks, you can click checkout now. That one. And some of them aren't going to fully work. I think that's something we're still sorting out, or might just be due to having multiple ebook providers. I know this is something that Isaac and Carol are working on, but I also was able to get one of these working yesterday. So I'll see, there we go. So you're able to see the available formats, and you can click checkout now. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's one of the things, this is working. Like I was able to get this work. I know we're having some issues with this. So I'll just put a pause on ebook checkouts for a sec. Just one more time. Okay, I'm going to put a pause on this, and then in tomorrow's session, I'll demo it on a different catalog, but I'm trying to keep aware of time. So borrowing pages, you can access these from the account menu. So you can click on hold. And you'll see different stages of availability. So there's not ready, paused, in transit, and ready for pickup. You can manage titles through here. So pause, in this case, it's going to be a simple on-off. And that's really useful if you are going on vacation and don't want a title to be available, or you're working on a series, or you just kind of got a lot to chew through. You can pause and it's going to move you to the front of the line, but not have your title ready for fulfillment. You can also view physical and digital. You can manage through multi-select and bulk manage items. And checked out, this is going to show, again, physical and digital. In this case, I only have one digital title checked out. You can choose to read in browser, to download, or even return these titles or overbooks, oh, sorry, ebooks a little bit early. So now we're going to jump over to the title record, AKA the bib page. And we recently launched a brand new bib page. So there's still a few things that we're rolling out, but it is really wonderful. And we've kept it deliberately sparse to highlight the most crucial info. So up top, you're going to see the cover image that pulls from a content provider, the author's name, and clicking this will view a search for that author. You can also select ratings through this dropdown. Navigate through the format chooser, which we saw earlier. And we've got a brief summary. We've got about the author. We saw the availability panel earlier. And then one of the coolest things about the new bib page is that what shows varies by format and content. So in this case, for a fiction title, we're seeing the details and we're seeing the author bio. And I can pull up full details to view all of the content. So in this case, we can see subject and genre, featured characters, and all of the links are different things that you can click to explore. So I can click, let's do dystopian fiction. And view other items with that subject heading. For nonfictions, we'll look at Sapiens as an example. It's showing contains. You can also see other contributors, and subject and genre are going to show more prominently as having greater relevancy of discovery paths for nonfiction titles. And then again, you can pull up full details. For movies, it's going to highlight contributors, and you can click on any of these to view results for this. So I can search Marvel Studios as an author and view all of the Marvel movies. So I'm going to jump back to Sapiens and look at the opinion section. So this pulls in critical reviews. So from Library Journal, Publishers Weekly. And below, we've got community comments. So once your library has kind of started creating readers advisory content, you'll be able to see comments from your library staff specifically in the opinion section. And I'm just going to navigate to that title on Arapaho. Oh, and I didn't double check that this one had staff comments. I'm just going to switch something quick. All right, sorry, I checked a lot of these. Johnson County does have comments, but they're still on our previous bib page. I'm just going to jump back to Arapaho and grab the Hunger Games as an example, because it definitely has content. So here we can see library staff comments, and that's going to prioritize comments from your library staff specifically. And then below you can see community comments. So if there is a little staff bar, then that's a staff person from another library, and you can click their username to see what library they're from. Often libraries will have a little favicon or a naming, or they will have the favicon if it's staff, but they often have a naming convention that identifies which library they're from. And you can also view all comments. And there's a call it to add a comment as well. Below is a carousel of staff lists, and I'm going to talk much more about lists in a little bit, but these are really great recommendation lists that you can leverage if you're trying to help someone who's looking for something similar, and is going to prioritize staff members. So in this case, Herrick actually implemented BiblioCore about 2 years ago. And so they're still recognized as a staff account under LLC, and we're seeing them here as representative of a staff list. You can view all lists as well. And you'll be able to see the title of the list, the user account, the date it was published, and the type of list as well. There's also You May Also Like, and this pulls in recommendations from Library Thing. And again, you can view all of these just by clicking. You can view summaries as well. So just really good to find related recommendations. And then related titles, this comes rather than recommendations, it's titles by similar authors or of similar topics. And then below is community tags. So these are user added. You can see that the number in brackets is how many people have applied this tag. And there are other useful discovery paths, and you can view all tags as well. That doesn't work quite like that. There we go. So we can view all of the tags that have been assigned to this particular title. And then below are community lists. So these are lists created by users who do not have staff accounts. They're generally of lower quality. We want everyone to be able to create a list, but we also want to highlight the more curated lists up here as well. So we have community lists below, and you have the ability to add to a new list, and we'll soon have the ability to add to an existing list from here as well. And then we've got the remaining community contributions. So quotations, summaries. In this case, we're not really seeing much. Let's see if I can jump over. Do I still have the Hunger Games open? No. Oh, yes, I do. Summaries, I don't really recommend that you as a staff person spend time looking at summaries because there's not a lot of added value. There's already a lot of summaries here, but you can also embed videos from YouTube or Vimeo and add age suitability ratings, and content notices will pull in from shelves, which we'll look at right next. So you can also add this content from shelves, and I'm going to demo in an incognito window on my own shelves from Chicago Public Library. Actually, just while I get this set up, any questions about the bib page, what we've gone over kind of since the last time we took a pause? Okay, so everyone has 3 shelves, completed, in progress, and for later. And these represent different stages of reading or watching something. So, or, listening to. So you can track what you're interested in reading, what you have read, and you can also really easily add content from here. You can also switch items between shelves. And you can add items to your shelf basically from anywhere that you see an item. So I'll just kind of jump over here quickly. You can see add to shelves from here. So in this case, I can add to for later shelf. And I have reached kind of a timeout for being logged in. Or from search results as well, you can add to shelves. Oh, wrong place. You can easily add content from your shelves. I'll scroll down. So you can add comments, ratings, tags, quotations, videos, similar titles, private notes. These are always going to be private. So this is good where if it's like impressions from a book club, or someone recommended it and you want to know why they thought you would like it, you can add suitability, content notices. And tags are really great because you can actually filter through them on your own shelves. And from shelves, you can add personal tags as well. So these are visible only to you. And this is great for things that are more subjective or more just kind of not really useful discovery paths for other people. So in this case, childhood favorite is really useful for me. I can also add kid pics to notebooks that my kids might be interested in or read in 2021. And you can click this tag to filter all items with that tag. So next we'll take a quick look at lists, and these are being covered much more in depth in the webinar that we're doing on Thursday. So anyone with an account can make a list, but staff lists are particularly highlighted and they can be promoted on social media or your website. And it's easy to share recommendations with patrons, and there's a lot of opportunity for fun and creativity. There are 2 types of lists, general recommendations and if you liked. So general recommendations are more thematic or topic-based lists. So in this case, we have a time travel list with a fun Doctor Who reference in the title. And if you like lists are read-alike, so books that are specifically similar to another title. So in this case, we've got items that are have something in common with Camino Island by John Grisham. There's a lot of room for creativity. So this is a pretty standard list of books that are good that you'll probably like. Although the boss I'm sick angle makes it interesting, makes it click-worthy. There's also really fun staff collaborations. So in this case, books we love to hate, essentially snarky annotations on self-help titles. You can collaborate with community partners. So each month, Johnson County Library in Kansas pairs up with the local SPCA. And they feature a list ostensibly written by that pet. And so you've got links out to their Facebook page, the adoption page, and fun recommendations. So under Treat, we've got Treat. You can do custom patron recommendations if your library has a program like Book Match or Your Next Great Read. You can have patrons submit a form either in person or online and give recommendations based on that. And if it's an interesting enough topic, you can choose to share it publicly. Or if it's something that's more private, you can set it to link only and send it directly to them. And we're going to cover that in Thursday's webinar. Okay, wrapping up. So if you have comments, time to start chatting them in. This is our second last section. So we're going to look at privacy. So I'll look first at settings. And these are accessible from the menu. I'm going to log back in. So barcode, name, and date of birth are asterisked out for people who are accessing this in public, just for privacy reasons. But you can update your email address, your username, your PIN. And then there's preferences for safe searches, holds, display language, community content defaults, which we'll talk about in a sec. And you can really just manage kind of any of your permissions from here or any of your preferences. So question came in from Tom. Basic OPAC searching question. Regarding public library PCs, will a session timeout after lack of input after a set amount of time and clear all search and limit selections? I can see a patron either purposefully or mistakenly selecting the active filters or any filtered selection and leaving the PC without clearing the search selections. Another patron then using the PC may have search limits applied without knowing. Secondly, if a patron is logged into their record, searching, etc., is there a timeout that will end their authenticated session and refresh back to basic search page? So I haven't checked the active search filters. I believe that's only active for like a certain like a search window. I don't know if it's reflected if you open and close. So in that case, it might depend on what settings you have set up on those terminals specifically. I do know, so generally me accessing this from home, there is a 30-minute timeout after inactivity. For in branches, Carol might be able to speak more to this in a sec because she's worked on this with Isaac. But generally, libraries will set for branch terminals, patron use branch terminals, a shorter timeout, sometimes 5 minutes, or a longer timeout for staff terminals. So that, 5 minutes is not really a lot of time for staff to use it. So Carol, I don't know if you know anything specific to the settings you have set up for that.
Just that Tom and I work together, so Tom and I will be working with Isaac on this. Great question, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's generally more controlled, especially for personally identifiable information, to have a shorter timeout. Question from Allison is that there are some patrons that use multiple libraries. Once they create a profile in one library scoped BiblioCommons, are they registered in the rest of LLC BiblioCommons? So this is actually an account that was from Herrick when they trained 2 years ago. And so I'm able to use it across Hastings, across Muskegon. I don't think it stays logged in across catalogs, but the functionality works across. You can see this is set as HDL. And Carol, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add to that.
One of the things this is Cheryl, that I will add to that is because Herrick started 2 years ago, there may be a number of patrons that have set their accounts at Herrick, and we're kind of looking at some of that. Once we go live, we're kind of looking at some of that cleanup because there's not an easy way to change that. So Isaac and I are starting to look at some of that cleanup of those accounts at a later date. It's kind of not real high on our priority list right now because there's things that are not set up yet. So that's all.
And in about 5 minutes, we're going to talk more about the launch process. So that'll give some insight into kind of the timeline for setting this up and when patrons will have access. So flagging inappropriate comments. This is a free and open internet, and you may come across content that you view to be offensive or that spoils significant content in the work. And the way that we deal with that is by enabling users to flag content as offensive, and then that enables it to be hidden. There is, I'm trying to figure out when, I'm trying to remember when this is coming out. So historically, we've had the default be that this content is open by default and you need to enable a setting to hide it. We're soon going to be implementing that it is by default set to hidden when someone registers, but I don't know what date that takes action. You can check the partner portal and our release notes for more information. But in order to report content, I'll just jump back to a bib page. You can see this little flag, and that's going to enable you to report something as containing offensive material, spoilers, or violating appropriate use standards. So for offensive content, this must be flagged by 3 unique users to be tagged as such. This happens rarely. This isn't 4chan. This isn't Reddit. people do tend to be pretty respectful on their library site because it is tied to their legal identity. But it does occasionally happen, which is why we have this process set up using community moderation. Spoilers must be flagged twice to be tagged as such, and this is usually on children's titles because they don't have filters. But in this case, no explanation needed. It either is or isn't a spoiler. If something violates the appropriate use standards, it must specifically violate the appropriate use standards as documented. 3 flags will send it to our privacy officer who reviews it. And under the First Amendment, we must give American users the ability to edit their content. And if it's still offensive after that, we're able to delete it. So if you come across a title that has flag content, you'll see this content wording at the top. And if you have it set to hide, it's going to show that this is a spoiler and that it's flagged as a spoiler. And you can choose to click show. And in that case, it's going to show the actual content. So in this case, this is from, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Aaron Hunter. They write kids' books about warrior cats and have some very opinionated young fans. So in this case, we're learning that Telstar dies. And again, another seemingly offensive comment on an Aaron Hunter title, which is just that this is horrible. So you can see you just show or hide, and then the reporting process, you'll click flag, and that's going to lead you to this screen where you can determine what you would like to flag it as. If it violates the appropriate use standards, you have to select which one it violates and confirm that you've read them. And last section, preparing for launch. So there are 3 stages of launch. Staff preview. This is staff preview. This is a chance to get comfortable with the catalog, create content, spread enthusiasm, and show your colleagues. During public preview, the new catalog is going to be public, and you'll start getting lots of feedback. Patrons are going to start registering, and it's a transitional period where the previous catalog is still going to be live as the default, but you can help people who might struggle a bit more with change get set up with the catalog. You're going to start getting feedback. And during public launch, BiblioCore will be the primary catalog. You're going to get more feedback. And it's a great chance to promote content and celebrate because there is a lot to love. Carol, I'm not sure if you have anything to touch on in terms of how the catalog is going to be linked during public preview. It sounds like right now the catalog is set, or there's one catalog across all member libraries, but I'm not sure how public preview is going to kind of work as a link for that right now, or in the public preview stage.
We're still working that out.
Okay, so it will be announced, TBD. So when you launch, you want to position BiblioCore as the new or updated LLC or specific to your member library catalog, really however you kind of most closely identify, not the new BiblioCore catalog. Patrons don't care where you buy your software. They probably don't even think about library software being an industry. And so this is an example of some branding materials from St. Paul Public Library when they launched about 3 years ago now. So they're advertising everything great that you're getting from the new catalog, but the word BiblioCommons or BiblioCore doesn't appear anywhere. It's entirely their branding. And we're a white label company, and that means we want you guys to shine and really just emphasize that this is your library's new online home. People can submit feedback when logged in from a feedback box at the bottom of the page. And initial feedback will be mixed. Before I look at feedback, I'm just going to address the the question from Hannah, which is, will a patron's reading history from previous catalog transfer to the new catalog? So if by reading history, is that something that is specifically set as like a curated list by users or borrowing history? Oh, Cheryl's got this. Awesome. So Hannah, Cheryl is typing in an answer and I'll read that out once it comes in. And I'm just going to finish with the launch section and we'll address all further questions at the end. So when you launch, many people are going to be excited. Some people will complain because it's basically a hobby to them. People will inevitably bring up tax dollars. But ultimately, people realize that there's a lot to love and a lot to be excited about. So when you're dealing with patron feedback, it's important to understand that concerns are often a knee-jerk reaction to change. It's not anything to do with a new catalog, it's just that there is a new catalog. And so when you're responding to feedback, it's important to be empathetic, positive, and constructive. Understand that concerns are usually coming from an emotional place. It's difficult to ask for help. And it's a lot easier to express anger than it is to say, I don't know how to work something. Be positive, show that there is a lot to really love about the new catalog, and highlight features that this person is going to like. And constructive. Often if you look in at a complaint or just something that seems kind of angry, you're going to find a question in there. So if someone's like, this is ridiculous to navigate, what they really mean is I am having trouble navigating. And rather than asking for help, they're making an assessment. So there's often a question couched in a complaint. Look for this, and this is an opportunity to connect with a patron and look for something to help them with, show concrete solutions. And start thinking of responses to common patron queries, and keep in mind that patrons may say website when they mean catalog. So probe to learn more. If someone says, I can't find something on your catalog, they likely mean the website. So common questions: how do I renew items? How do I manage holds? Why do I need a username? Why do I need to register? Will people see my borrowing history? No, they never ever will. How do I find something on a new catalog? Where do I find something in the account menu? And what's the difference between lists and shelves? How do shelves work? I'm just going to go back to the question that Hannah had because it's kind of relevant right now. And Cheryl had answered that yes, the Triple I reading history, if you were opted in, will populate your account in BiblioCore. Awesome. I find that sometimes older patrons, their reading history will be what they've borrowed. I definitely don't read everything that I borrow, but for some people that is actually reflective of the reading history. So with that, I'll look at some feedback that we have received from libraries during the launch process. What a complete and unnecessary waste of time. The previous website was fine. Now users have to learn to navigate a new system. And this essentially is something changed and I didn't like that it changed. But we also do get feedback of people realizing, you know, after a few days of trying to navigate the new system nervously and experiencing from frustration, I have to say that I truly love it. You folks did a great job. And we've also gotten a lot of really positive comments like, I've fallen in love with the library all over again. So to wrap up, I'll stay on for a few minutes after, but any final questions, start tying them in. I'm going to point you to 2 resources that will be useful as you explore. So the first is Catalog and Account Help. This is accessible from every page. And this covers all of the patron-facing functionality. So if you're on the desk, if you're trying to help with someone, or even just via chat, I know that we've pivoted a lot in terms of how we assist patrons in a more digital-first world. You can point them to this, and it's going to go over everything that a patron interacts with. For staff, there is the Partner Portal, and this is partnerportal.bibliocommons.com, and you can register with your LLC address. And here you can see release notes and you can view documentation as well. Just a reminder that BiblioCore is the cataloging product that LLC has purchased. Or you can search for more information. So I can search lists and get articles about lists. So that said, go forth and conquer. Carol will be in touch later this week or next week with details about the URLs. And so at that point, you can explore, play around, share what you've learned with colleagues, think of cool things to show patrons, and you can start using it for personal use. So before we wrap up, Carol, Cheryl, any closing comments?
Cheryl, do you have anything?
No, not really. Think of. No.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. And I'll see some of you later this week at the Readers Advisory webinar.
Thank you, Brietta.
You're welcome.